was just 5'5", barely 120 pounds, rejected by the Navy and the Marines for being too small. But within a few years, this same scrawny kid would single-handedly hold off 100 German soldiers, climb on top of a burning tank, and become the most decorated American soldier in all of World War II. This is the insane true story of Audie Murphy, the kid who refused to die. It's crazy to think how heroes sometimes come from the most unexpected places. Audie Murphy wasn't born a warrior. He didn't come from power or money. He came from the dirt, literally. The kind of poverty that forces you to grow up fast, or not at all. And yet, when the world started falling apart in the 1940s, this poor Texas farm boy somehow became the symbol of courage itself. But his story isn't just about medals and glory. It's about pain, fear, and what war really does to someone who survives it. When World War II began, the United States was still recovering from the Great Depression. Families were struggling to eat, jobs were scarce, and for many young men, joining the military seemed like the only way out. For Audie Murphy, it was even tougher. He was one of 12 kids in a dirt-poor family in Hunt County, Texas. His dad abandoned them. His mom died when he was just a teenager. And suddenly, Audie, this small, skinny kid, had to take care of his younger siblings. When Pearl Harbor was attacked, like millions of other Americans, he wanted to fight. But there was one problem. Nobody wanted him. The Navy said he was too small. The Marines said he was too underweight. Even the paratroopers turned him down. But Audie didn't quit. He finally convinced the Army to take him. And that one yes changed history. Audie Murphy joined the Army in 1942, just 17 years old. He actually had to fake his birth date to qualify. When he first showed up for training, nobody thought he'd make it through. He looked more like a kid pretending to play soldier than a real recruit. But that's where everyone was wrong, because Audie had something that training can't teach: grit. When other soldiers were exhausted, Audie kept moving. When rations were low, he shared his food. When bullets started flying, he didn't freeze. He focused. He was assigned to the 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division. They were sent to North Africa, then Sicily, and later to Italy. By the time he saw his first real combat, he'd already learned how to survive. And survival in Audie's world was an art form. In Sicily, he proved himself in small skirmishes, taking out enemy positions with calm precision. But it was in Italy where he truly started to stand out. His unit was ordered to capture a heavily fortified hill. The Germans had machine guns hidden in stone bunkers, and the whole thing was a death trap. When the rest of the squad got pinned down, Audie crawled alone through the mud, inches at a time, until he got close enough to throw grenades. He destroyed the machine gun nest by himself and cleared the way for his squad to move forward. That single act of courage earned him a promotion, but for Audie, it wasn't about rank. He just didn't want his friends to die. He kept doing things like that, over and over, in battle after battle. When the Allies invaded southern France in 1944, Audie's unit landed near the Riviera. The fighting there was brutal. One day his company got ambushed by German soldiers. Bullets ripped through the trees. Audie spotted a group of German machine gunners hidden behind a wall. Without waiting for orders, he grabbed his carbine and charged straight at them. By the time it was over, he had killed several enemies, captured the rest, and saved his entire platoon. He was just 19 years old. That's when his legend started to spread. His fellow soldiers began saying things like, "If Murphy's with us, we'll make it out alive." And he did everything to live up to that. But war doesn't stop giving you nightmares. It just keeps pushing. The winter of 1945 was one of the coldest in decades. Snow, ice, and mud turned battlefields into frozen hell. Murphy's unit was in eastern France, near a place called Holtzwihr. They were ordered to hold their ground against advancing German tanks. The problem? The Germans had hundreds of men, plus tanks and artillery. Murphy's company had maybe 40 men left. It should have been a massacre. The Germans came at them with everything. Tanks rolled through the forest, blasting trees apart. Bullets cut through the air like hail. Audie told his men to retreat into the woods for cover, but he stayed. And this is where he became a legend. The story of Holtzwihr is one of those moments in history that sounds made up, but it's real. As the Germans advanced, Murphy saw a burning American tank destroyer nearby. Ammunition inside it was cooking off, popping, exploding. Flames and black smoke were everywhere. Most people would have run the other way, but not Audie. He climbed onto the burning tank destroyer, grabbed its 50 caliber machine gun, and opened fire. From that exposed position, completely alone, he fought off an entire German company. He was firing so hard that German troops thought they were under attack by a full squad. Bullets and shells exploded around him. The ground shook. His clothes were scorched. He was bleeding from shrapnel wounds, but he kept shooting. For almost an hour, he held his position, alone. He killed or wounded more than 50 enemy soldiers and destroyed several machine gun nests. When his ammo finally ran out, he jumped off the burning tank and went back to lead his men in a counterattack. That's not a movie. That really happened. For his actions that day, Audie Murphy received the Medal of Honor, the highest military award in the United States. He was also awarded every other major combat medal the Army had to offer, plus honors from France and Belgium. By the time the war ended, he had received 33 medals in total. No American soldier had ever been more decorated. But here's the thing. Audie never saw himself as a hero. He always said the real heroes were the men who didn't come home. After the war, Audie came home a national hero. He was just 20 years old, but he'd already seen more death and destruction than most people could imagine. Hollywood noticed him fast. He ended up becoming an actor, starring in more than 40 movies, including To Hell and Back, where he played himself, reenacting the same battles that nearly killed him. But the real story didn't end with fame. The war had left scars that no medal could cover. Audie suffered from what we now call PTSD. Back then, they called it shell shock. He had nightmares every night. He slept with a loaded pistol under his pillow. Sometimes he'd dive to the floor when he heard loud noises. He spent years trying to help other veterans who struggled with the same thing. He even spoke publicly about mental health, long before it was common for soldiers to do that. Despite all the fame and money, he never really escaped the war. He once said, "I'm scared of being alone, and I'm scared of not being alone." Audie Murphy died in a plane crash in 1971 at the age of 45. He was buried at Arlington National Cemetery, where his grave is one of the most visited of any soldier. His life was short, but what he did in those few years changed how America saw its heroes. Because Audie Murphy proved that heroism doesn't come from size or strength or power. It comes from doing what needs to be done, even when you're terrified. It comes from standing your ground when everyone else runs. And that's why, even decades later, his story still matters. When we talk about bravery in World War II, Audie Murphy's name isn't just remembered, it's respected. He didn't fight for glory. He fought because someone had to. And that's what makes him one of the greatest heroes the world has ever known. If you want to hear about another forgotten World War II hero, watch the next video. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, and comment for more. I'll see you in the next one.